There's a lot of details that have to be worked out between today and then, because obviously first they have to beat the Ukrainians. It's in play. I can't predict where the war is going to go. The first year of every Russian war looks just like this one. It's a shit show.
Yeah.
And then the Russians throw 1 million men at it, and the math changes. We haven't had that change yet. Yeah,
And
until such time that the Russians can regain the strategic initiative, and it's possible that they won't. Their best play is to make Ukraine utterly uninhabitable. Well, this is their last real conventional war. They only have those 8 million men of the appropriate age. And if they are fighting or dying, they are not having kids. And Russia is already the second worst demographic structure in the world after China. Yes. Now, the first 7 times that he did things like this, the world handed him exactly what he was after. This is the first time that people have pushed back. With the best demographic in the developing world is our primary trading partners. So we know that these trends have decades to run.
right.
Okay, let's start with the Chinese. The Chinese are now in a position where the only way that they can survive as a nationality, forget even a country at this point, is to strike some sort of long-reaching deal with the United States. The Japanese showed that you can have a very proud, very successful country that can do this because they cut a deal with Trump that was humiliating, but they knew it was necessary for their demographic, economic, and strategic survival. And then they cut the exact same deal with the Biden administration to show that you could do it with both sides of the political aisle. They're the only country that's ready for what's coming. Oh, it's a trade deal on Trump's terms. So every niggling issue in the relationship was resolved and hardwired into the Japanese system according to Trump American preferences permanently.
Yeah.
I would say that he had an excellent trade representative, Robert Lighthizer, and Robert Lighthizer was the only person in the Trump cabinet that served the entire term and actually had influence the whole time. And for
Okay.
whatever reason, and I don't have a good answer for why, Trump trusted Lighthizer to do his job, and he did a great job. The Chinese have proven that they can't reverse engineer mid and high quality semiconductors. They can only do the low end and only with imported equipment. And that has to be codified into any sort of long-term deal that China, you're just not going to be a tech producer because we can't trust you with anything. Yeah,
So in other words,
there's no way that the CCP in its current form could survive the deal, but if China is going to survive, a deal is necessary. Yeah, now this deal will never happen
oh, it
because the
won't happen.
CCP will not allow itself to disassociate. But that's what would have to happen. For the Russians, I don't think it's possible. There is no way to have a Russia that is secure and to have Russian neighbors that are secure. And the Americans have already chosen to ally with most of the neighbors, even before the Ukraine war started. Partially,
Afghanistan.
there's a lot of examples. The Russians will probably disassociate into 30 or 35 warring principalities, and that will just kind of become not so much a no man's land, but a shifting feudal conflict zone. In the case of China, the northern third, the North China Plain, that'll probably descend into kind of a neo-Maoist tyranny, complete with the famine. And then the southern city-states from Shanghai to Hong Kong will probably become semi-independent and interface with foreigners for everything from technology to trade to food supply, which historically speaking is how they've typically operated. North Korea is a black hole. No one really knows because everybody's spies have been killed, including China's. Yeah, nobody has good information for what's going on. The best guess, it is a guess, but it's the guess that's been passed to me from a lot of intelligence officials in a lot of countries, is that Kim Jong-un, the current guy, when he was liquidating his father's generation to make sure there wasn't going to be a coup, he discovered Twitter and started tweeting about things going on within the country in order to undermine other people's positions. And Trump assumed it was all about him. And that's where the fire and fury stuff came from. Is Trump assumed fire and fury meant Trump, and it really meant Pyongyang. And so Trump was like, well, I've got a bigger button. I can have more fire and more fury. And the Chinese found out about the fact that the Kim administration in North Korea was trying to calm the Trump administration down, which was leading to a conversation, which was leading to a summit. And the Chinese kind of lost it. And so they drug the younger Kim to Beijing to yell at him. And when it became apparent that they couldn't talk him out of meeting Trump, they put him in a little kiddie chair. And then they put Xi behind his big imperial desk with a booster chair so he could lecture down to the wayward province.
Oh my
And
God.
The Chinese loved it because it was very imperial. But Kim, on his way home, was like, call Trump, tell him that the summit's on. We're never talking to these fuckers again.
They don't.
No. It's like they are their largest trading partner, but they don't trade. So that really doesn't mean anything. North Korea is its own thing. And that makes it a wild card in every way that it can be.
They could be suffering from a famine right now we wouldn't know about.
Exactly.
It's somewhere in the
Well,
garden.
I wouldn't put it quite that way, but think of it this way. The demographic transition that we have gone through since 1945 has defined a lot of our successes and a lot of our pending failures. So when birth rates started to drop in the 50s, when you had young adults with fewer kids, they had a lot more money to spend on things. And we got this consumption boom in various parts of the world. When those young adults went from their 20s and their 30s to their 40s, 50s, and early 60s, which is where they've been since 1990, they were saving for the retirement. So we had all this capital. And in order to make technology work at scale, to advance it at scale, you need a whole lot of money to push it through because you don't know what's going to work. So you work on a lot of different things at the same time, knowing that a lot of them aren't going to work out.
Mm.
Well, now that they're all moving into retirement, that capital is going away. And so the pace of technological advancement that we've been used to for the last 30 years was always just a moment in time. And during those 30 years, people drew a lot of straight line forecasts, assuming that the capital structure was never going to change. And that's where we got things like the singularity. That's where we got things like EVs. That's where we got the internet revolution. Well, the pace now has to not necessarily reverse, but slow down a whole lot because the money is no longer there. And there's no longer a lot of people in their 20s and their 30s to do the work in the first place.
It's
Crypto is a poster child for the environment of 1990 to 2022 when capital has been available in limitless volumes. There was never anything there. And now that the money is going away, crypto is going away. In a world where we have carbon taxes, crypto's value is negative.
why
It has no intrinsic value. It's
right.
not a method of exchange. It's not a store of value. As we're discovering, it's been an excellent vehicle for fraud. And so
Yes.
its net value normally would be zero. But if it takes energy to produce it and we have carbon taxes, then its net value is zero or negative. It's negative. There is no reason to expect the energy complex in the United States to suffer or the food complex. And we're probably going to see a doubling of the size of the industrial plant at the same time we integrate more tightly with Mexico than we have with any other country throughout our history. These are all good things. These are durable. These are large scale. These give us economies of scale. And on the other side of this, the North American system is going to rewrite the human condition. South
Uh,
America looks broadly okay. They're probably not going to experience any of the sort of military shocks that the Eastern